Okay, part two of the color chart. I'm already prepared. Actually, if I bring the palette over for just a moment, I have three color combinations here that I want to talk about. I have some clean water. I have a brush. It's not a tiny, tiny brush. It's a round one still. You don't want it to be too small, otherwise these squares are actually big enough that it may be somewhat challenging. Clearly I have some paper towels, all of that. At this point, you need to have the bottom half of your diagonal row of pure color in, as well as the top half done. To be truthful, the top half here isn't done because this is an old demo, as you can see at the top there, that I've only done part of. Now, as I explained in the very end of the last demo, where these colors intersect is where we put combinations. So that's why red goes here, because it's both red and red. And we want the bottom half of this to be darker than the top half. So red and orange will go here. Red and yellow will go here. Systematically, the way I work at this is I do this red-orange. As soon as that's painted while it's drying, I add water and I do this red-orange. Then I do this red-yellow, and then I do this red-yellow after adding some water to it. And then red-green and red-green. And I'll go through all of my reds first, both light and dark values. Then I'll go through all of my oranges, and I start here and work my way across here. And I start here and I start here. The reason why I do that is for me, I find it saves me a ton of time. Because if I do the bottom half, one that is darker first, then all I have to do, I don't have to remix the color, and I don't have to wonder what it's gonna look like when it's dry, and how much water I have to add to it. So I'll do this and then that, this and then that. I won't do all of these and then all of these. I go back and forth, and I gradually wind up to where I'm over here. The other thing that I will say is that you can see in the back of my sketchbook how I have a piece of test paper. So I'll actually just move that to a clean page so that I can be testing my color out and testing my values out. So at first here, I have a red-orange, and I know that red and orange is going to go here. So I will paint in the darker of my values. I pre-mixed this so that you don't have to spend the time in this video watching me do that, but I will need to test the lighter value that I have going on here. I'm going to use my paper towels to dab up some of the excess paint. I'm going to spread this around so it is a little bit more even. Then I'm going to add some clean water to that, and I'm going to test out the value on a scrap piece of paper that is real light. So I grabbed a little bit more. Okay, so I want that kind of somewhere in between. And then red and orange, same color, comes up here. I can tell just by feel I have a little bit too much water on my brush, so I hit the brush on the paper towel. I'm going to rotate this around so I can stay as perfectly within this square as possible. And I'll do the light value of that. Then next what I would do is red and yellow, then light red and yellow, then red and green, which is what I'm actually going to do next. Now there are a few things that you want to remember. We know that red and yellow make orange, so this color should be very similar to that color. If it's not, then I need to add either more yellow or more red. Probably more yellow because red is a much stronger color. I know that red and green give sort of like a grayish color, so I should have sort of a grayish. When I test my color out on my scrap piece of paper, right, let me get ready over here and see if this is still wet enough, right? That's actually pretty good. If it was clearly too green, I need to add more red. If it was clearly too red, I need to add more green. So I'm going to put that in here. The same thing goes when I'm adding red and blue together. I know that red and blue give me a purple or violet color, and I need to make sure that I'm getting the correct thing. This is especially important when you get to mixtures like blue and orange or yellow and purple. You need to make sure that it looks brown, because we can't go back and easily correct this and change this. So I have this. I will add some water to my palette, retest my color on my scrap piece of paper, you can see that it is significantly lighter. So I will find red and green up here. Get rid of some of the excess, spread this out. And then I'll go from there. Now, next, I'm going to do maybe, oddly, my favorite color combination on this whole worksheet. It's actually going to be green and violet together. So I'm going to do this, and then my light version goes green and violet over here. So I'll be dealing with these two squares next. Again, I would say that this is not the order that I would go in. I'm just trying to do some random combinations to hit home at a couple of points. So I like this color combination because it's kind of bluish, right? Because both violet and green have blue in there, but it's clearly not blue at the same time. So my darkest version, violet and green, is going to go here. To be honest with you, I wish this was a little darker. I think I diluted it too much. And again, to remind you, the recipe to correct that is to let this dry and then do a second coat on top of it. So now I have this hopefully a lighter version, and I will find green and violet up here, and I will do the lighter version on the top half of my worksheet. Some of these color combinations we know, red and blue give violet, violet and yellow give brown. Some of them we are less familiar with, like what happens when you add orange and brown together? What happens when you add black to green? We're just less familiar with those. We don't have like names for those colors. So testing out on a scrap piece of paper is super important, and really being thoughtful about what you're doing and looking at it and saying, oh, well, clearly there's too much black in there because I can barely see the orange. Or there's way too much orange in there, I barely see the yellow. And then systematically working through doing the darker half, then doing the lighter half, doing the darker half, then doing the lighter half, doing the darker half, then doing the lighter half. You just need to make sure that you have a dark enough value to begin with, and you have a light, but not too light of a version for the top half. And eventually, your worksheet will be finished. And as I showed in class, and I will show again, that will end up looking something sort of like that. Much darker on the bottom, much lighter on the top.